Hey there, welcome to another episode of Rough Rants. Your host Preston, and today we'll be talking about the next episode of Power Rangers Dino Fury. This is the third episode. With this, I should be caught up. I don't believe at the time of this recording the fourth episode has been released. I believe that will come out on March 20th. So I believe I am caught up after this one. And with this episode, I'll be talking about exactly what happened in it and give my general idea and opinion of it as we progress. The episode starts up with Zato. He's kind of depressed. He's looking at this necklace he has and he's reminiscing about it. The necklace was from his mother. I guess before the Sporg eggs destroyed his planet. It's not 100% clear exactly where in the timeline the war on his planet and when he became a knight on his planet occurred. But yeah, he's depressed. His mother is letting him know how proud she is of him. And he then gets a message from Sor. Oh man, I can't remember her name. The dinosaur cyborg lady. Solon? Yeah, I think it's Solon. I think that's right. I didn't write her name down, so. But Solon, pretty sure that's it. She informs him that she's receiving what appears to be a message from the galaxy where Zato's planet is, which is called, this I did write down, Rathcon. She says that it's not definitively from there, but it's at least in the ballpark area of there. So potentially it could be a message from his home. They try to listen into it, but the device they use to try to decipher it ends up overloading and it blows up. Basically, a component of it blows up, so they can't. They can't listen to it, unfortunately. And then Amelia and Ollie. Ollie? Yes, Ollie. I'm getting better. They show up to the base and they give their sympathy, and they both come up with ideas on how they might be able to decipher the message. So Solon tells them that the component they need to fix the decoder or whatever, it's too advanced for Earth technology, so they're probably not going to be able to fix it. So they come up with a couple of ideas. Amelia suggests that they go to a psychic that she knows, a fortune teller, and she'll be able to divine the message. And then Ollie suggests that they go to a I want to say an astronomy lab, something like that. Basically, just some scientists who would have probably been able to pick up the signal as well, and maybe they can be able to decipher it. Zato says that they might as well try both, which makes me go like, wait, if you're all for exhausting all options, why didn't you do that in the previous episode with the scanner thing? Because that was kind of a point that I had where it was just like, why didn't you just do both? It's like, this is one, again, this is a scenario like that, but you make the right decision in this one. But, so they decide to go, they're going to do both, but they get to go to the fortune tellers first. The fortune teller turns out to be at like this, it looks like almost a Ren fair, but it's like in a public park to the point of like it seems like it's almost always happening there. So I'm not sure if it's just like it's a park and there's a couple of people who are dressed up in Ren Fair attire, or the Ren Fair just happens to be in town that day. But I don't know. But they end up going and they meet up with the psychic, whose name is Madame Indigo. They go into the tent, and it turns out that Amelia's boss, Jay, right? I want to say that was her name. Jay. Sure. It was either Jay or Janet, something like that. Amelia's boss is there. And it's kind of funny because she's doing this as a video for their the company. What was it? Not BuzzFeed, but it was like BuzzBot or something like that. They're not Googled, not BuzzFeed website. But anyway, she's there, and the psychic lady, Madame Indigo, gives her a like a cloth that she puts over her head, over her eyes, and tells her that, you know, if you dull your senses, your psychic senses will be amplified. And she totally believes it, and then walks outside of the tent to go and prove that she has these psychic abilities, and she's planning to use these psychic abilities to locate the spore eggs, to divine where they are. And she's accompanied by her android. I didn't bring this up in the previous episode because it was only for like a minute, but she got a android from Hartford Technologies. I believe that was what it was called. And I'm 90% certain, again, I didn't watch every single series of Power Rangers, but I'm pretty sure that Hartford was from the Overdrive season, which I hear is terrible. But his, spoilers alert for that season, his son was an android that he built, so it would make sense that he was able to make, you know, more androids. It's a little concerning because his son was an android who became a human in that series, in that season. So it'd be kind of like, how did he react to that? Like, hey, son, I'm going to make more, basically, your siblings, and I'm going to sell them off. You cool with that? But yeah, apparently he's making robots or making androids for commercial sale, because it's not like she's a government agent. She's just she's a boss lady of this social media website. So this technology is available to the public. So that's kind of an interesting thing. I'm curious if they're going to elaborate or do more with it, but I have a feeling it's just going to be kind of like a goofy, you know, almost Bulk and Skull kind of deal, because they're definitely leaning more on the comedic side. Jay is just kind of, you know, running around with this blindfold on and thinks that she has psychic powers, but she's just like, you know, bashing into things. And the android, who she refers to as J-Bot, is just is recording her, and they end up like in the middle of the city. J-Bot accidentally steps into a like bucket full of concrete, and for some reason, the second her foot touches the concrete, it solidifies instantly. So it's very, very quick dry cement. And of course, right next to them is a sporg egg, and it starts to hatch. And J-Bot is like freaking out about it. And then back at the tent where the Rangers are, they're talking to Madame Indigo. Madame Indigo. They're talking to her, and they're asking her if she can divine the message. And she talks to Zato, and he's just like, oh yeah, I want to, you know, see if I can get a communication from far away, from home. And she says, like, she divines that, you know, indeed there are people that are missing him, and he's super sad that he's not there. And of course this gives him hope, but Ollie recognizes that that's nothing. And it's funny because he ends up tricking her into divining his relationship with Amelia. He's like, yeah, me and Amelia, we've known each other for years and we are so in love with each other. Can you divine how our relationship is going to be in the future? And she divines, and she's like, oh yeah, you guys have been so close for years, and you guys are going to be even more happy in the future, which just shows that she's full of crap. And they go out, and Zato's like, oh, I didn't know you guys knew each other for years. And he's like, we did. And Ollie's like, we don't. We've only known each other for like a week. She was lying. And he's like, so of course Zato's depressed. And Amelia is just like, oh yeah, usually she's right. But then they decide to go to, and they kind of hint that maybe Ollie and Amelia might become a thing, kind of a meet cute kind of dealio. They do the whole like, I don't like you. Ooh, that's gross. You're icky. I would never date someone like you type of dealio. I don't really care. But so that was a bust. So they go to the astronomers or the scientists, and they ask them if using the connections that Ollie's mom has, saying that she is also a scientist, because all scientists know each other, just scientist, even though she's an archaeologist. All the sciences. They go there. They talk to the scientist guy. And he basically just says that the thing that they detected was like, it wasn't a message. It was just a blip, basically. So they feel that either it was a blip or that their devices couldn't pick up the message in its entirety. So again, they're kind of depressed about that. And this is when the spore egg fully hatches. Jay somehow ends up on a school bus. Like, J-Bot is screaming for Jay to help her and that there's a spore egg, but then Jay is just on a random school bus. It's not even like a public transit bus. It's just a school bus that apparently the driver didn't care that this lady with a blindfold was on and just drove off with her. But the thing finally hatches, and it reveals to be a monster who refers to itself as Vipera. She's kind of got like these coil snake kind of thing covering her eyes, and then she has like a face on her chest. And they're kind of going for like a Medusa type deal a little bit. But it was kind of funny because every time like she would like kind of put her head like this, I always kind of thought her head looks like a Cinnabon. It just kind of reminded me of that. But it hatches. The Rangers, J-Bot calls the hotline that the Rangers set up from the last episode. And then Solon tells them, hey, go to that location. That's where it's been reported. So they go there. And I just kind of find that funny, too, because it's just like, that a bunch of, like, in reality, a bunch of people would be, like, pranking that hotline and doing all this stuff, or, like, using it to meet the Rangers. Like, oh, hey, I totally saw a spore egg. It's at my birthday party. If you guys could come around 5, that'd be great. But no, they go there, and immediately the monster turns around and makes Zato look at her eyes that are on her body. And if you look at her eyes there, you'll become frozen. Like, you don't become stone or anything like that. You're just like, as long as you are looking at the eyes, you cannot move. And Ollie and Amelia see this, and it kind of made me laugh because they don't do anything, and the monster just hits Zato, and he goes flying. And I just thought that was funny because it's just like, they recognize that he's frozen and that the monster is coming to attack him, but they don't do anything. So it's just like, oh, and they're like, oh, the monster's ability is this, and I'm like, yeah, too bad Zato had to die for you to find out. He's alive, but I just found that funny. But they morph. They try to defeat her, but like they're doing this the entire time, so they can't see because they don't want to get paralyzed. But because they can't see, that makes them do the comic relief. I can't see, and are like flailing around ridiculously to the point of just like, you're not even trying, guys. But yeah, they get beat pretty bad, and then Mucus shows up, comes over to Vipera, and just like hey. And it was funny too because she just this is also a little funny because she just comes up and is like, hey, let's do something together. And Vipera's like, okay. And Mucus grabs J-Bot's camera that she was using to stream Jay, and then they just teleport away. And so they go back to the base. Zato is still depressed about not being able to get the message, so he kind of wants to be by himself. And Amelia and Ollie go out to see if they can locate the monster, and then they get a message from Amelia's job, and they're like, hey, there's an issue. They go there, and it turns out like something is causing the live stream, like things aren't being able to be uploaded even though they have Wi-Fi, and it's revealed why that is. Mucus had set up the camera to record Vipera and doing her freeze ability to prevent to do the freeze ability by making people look into her eyes, which apparently counts even if you see them through a video camera. And she somehow hacked every device, like it's on televisions, phones, everywhere, and is now streaming this video in a loop of her mesmerizing everyone. So everyone is now completely frozen, including Ollie and Amelia. And it cuts back to Zato. He's back in the headquarters, and Sola then sees also the video and says like, "Hey, Zato, come look at the video." And he comes over and he's just like, "Oh no!" And he gets frozen. But she's completely immune to it, and she turns the video off, and Zato's fine. And she just says it's because I have robo eyes. I guess that counts. But Zato's like, okay, I need to figure out a way to defeat her without looking at her. And he looks at his pendant, his necklace thing, which is like a rock. It's like this red kind of amber looking rock. And it's funny because what ends up happening is like he pulls that out and he's just like, I'm looking at this to give myself inspiration. And then Sola sees it and goes like, oh, hey, I can use that as the component that broke in the transmitter thing to decode the message. And I'm like, wow, that's convenient. Like, I just thought that it was like, really, guys, like that's such a non-issue. You should have just had it be it broke and she needed to fix it and it was going to take some time, not just have it be like, oh yeah, the thing that you had conveniently is the one object I need. If only we had like a G7B chip. Oh, thanks. But yeah, she's like, okay, I'll take that and I'll get the thing working while you go save the Rangers. And he gets a power key, a boost key, sorry. A boost key that gives him like sonic, I guess it increases his hearing, I guess. Basically, he uses echolocation. Finds out where Vipera is. Has a blindfold on, and then he's able to attack her by using basically echolocation. And then he attacks the recording device and breaks it. So now the stream is now broken. So everyone breaks out of the curse and is able to move. So Ollie and Amelia are like, "Oh, cool, we can move now," and they head over to where Zato is, and they back him up. They end up getting the upper hand on Vipera, and she ends up getting huge, becoming a giant monster. And at this point, they've established that Sola was working on. I'm going to say like so many different names for her. They were establishing that she was working on their Zords to get them up and running. They're good to go now. They have the Ankylozor and the Tricerazord. I don't remember if that's exactly how they called them. I think the Tricerazord they named slightly different because like its frontal horn is like it's super long and it is a horn, and then the Ankylozord's tail is a flat out hammer. And it's kind of funny. It's kind of weird too because like the Zords look like Legos or Duplo blocks because they have like these pegs on their backs and kind of like underneath them. Like the whole point of it is supposed to, in like the Tyrannosaurus, the main Zord. It has like these pegs like Legos, and you can tell it's like, okay, so the way it works is that they'll like attach like that to the Zords, and that's how they get, you know, better attachments and get more powerful. It just looks kind of goofy looking. Not a deal breaker, but it's just kind of funny. But Zato is fighting Vipera, but she still has the freezing ability. So if you look into her eyes, it'll cause you to become paralyzed. So he's having a hard time because he can't use the sonic ability. And Amelia and Ollie come up with an idea. I did like the idea. I'm like, oh, okay. What they end up doing is they get their Zords to break up the street, and then using some boost keys, they cause the pieces to float in the air and throw it into the eyes, basically into the eyes of the into Vipera, and then Ollie uses another boost key that like repairs it, so like it solidifies all into like a street, like a chunk of a street over her eyes. So it's blocking that, and I was like, "Oh, cool! That's kind of like Josuke from JoJo, kind of." I was like, "Oh, that's kind of fun." But they get into their Zords, and then they combine into the big Megazord, and they very easily kill Vipera at the point. The finishing move, I can't remember the exact name of the finishing move, but basically they summon this big, jagged-looking, dinosaur sword, and then do a final slash, and it kills Vipera. And then, but as they established in the previous episode, even if you destroy them, they just become the eggs again and become more powerful. It falls on the ground, and then Void Knight shows up, and he's like, "All right, I'm gonna get another one of these." But I was a little surprised because I thought what was gonna happen is for the first few episodes, Void Knight was gonna get the majority of these eggs, but no, the Rangers are able to get there in time and grab the Sporg egg before Void Knight can and just teleport away. And Void Knight is just like, "Oh man, I wanted that," and that's it. That's all for Void Knight. But they go back to the base, and Sola has gotten everything going. She's like, and it was funny too because again, she's just like, "Hey, if it wasn't for you and being able to give me this, this rock, I wouldn't have been able to fix the machine. It's all because of your hard work." And I'm like, he didn't do anything. He just happened to have the convenient MacGuffin that you needed. That's not hard work. That's just lazy writing. But she fixed it. That's all that matters. And they played the message, and the message is in this, it's, I guess, an alien language. It just kind of sounded like distortion to me personally, but apparently it's a legitimate language, more or less. But Sola can't understand it. She says there is a funny line where she goes like, "I know like basically every language except for this one and French. I have a it's a really hard language." And I was just thinking of like Futurama, where it's just like, yeah, it's a dead language. But they're not sure exactly what's going on with the message. It could potentially be from Rathcon, and just because it's been 65 million years, the language has evolved to the point of, it's completely different. It evolved from English, which again is kind of funny when you think about it. It's like this 65 million year old alien planet, and they developed English. Okay. I mean, maybe no, because I was gonna say maybe like Zato's psychic powers allowed him to divine the English language when he touched Ollie and Amelia, but he was already speaking English before then, so no, so he just knew English from the get go. But he gets so they hear that they're just like, okay, we don't really know. Maybe we'll figure out what the message means. But Zato then at the end of the episode goes like, well, we couldn't, technically decode the message, but I can also send a message. So he ends up sending a message out to, I guess, either the universe or just to specifically to try to get to Rathcon, saying that they're the Rangers and we're here, and that's how the episode ends. Overall, I thought it was okay. There was a couple of fun parts, especially with like when they were going to the fortune teller and some of the battle combinations and things they were using to overcome the enemy instead of just, hey, hit it really, really hard. It's like we kind of have to think a little bit about it. So that was fun. I didn't really like how Void Knight was just not in this episode. He just shows up literally for less than a minute and just kind of shrugs his shoulders, and they don't even try to stop him either. It's like you would think that they would attack him because he's an enemy, but they just leave. So, okay. But overall, it was all right. It's definitely a middle type of episode, standard. I am curious of what's going to happen now that they have the more or less full set Zord, and what's going to come of the message, if anything. I feel like this season feels a little bit more solid in the writing department. They don't just seem to be the characters don't just seem to be a trope. They seem to have kind of a quirk to them, but they also have their own personality. So I do like that with the characters. I also really like that Zato isn't always mopey / always like super serial all the time. He's because a lot of times with those type of characters, especially like this, where they're like, oh, I was the knight and I was tasked with the original team and blah, blah, blah. They become like super hard, and they learn the lesson of not being as critical, but then the next episode, they're basically back to where they were, just not as much as that particular episode. But I am glad that he's more or less, not lighthearted, but tempered, I guess would be a good word for it. But yeah, I am interested to see where the season will go. I'm not sure if I'll do an individual rough rant for each and every single episode. I might do it to where like I do 2 episodes combined kind of deal. It just depends on how I feel. But yeah, let me know what you thought if you saw the episode or what you thought of my rant in general. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.